Originally, on this meeting, we were hoping to get a fellow named Mr. Smith, whose father was a very famous pilot. Unfortunately, he had a family situation, so he was unable to make it. And we did actually go to the top of the mark and get the best guy around. So if you want to start now, or do you want to let these guys socialize for a while? It's up to you.
Start now.
What's the consensus?
Start now.
Start now?
Okay.
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 Do you want me to make my announcement?
Sure.
When I was flying and my husband was flying, not Richard, but the other husband, that was better to the children. We lived down in Arizona, and we found the little runway there in the house, and actually I took the paper and wrote it and had the people build the house that would take 2 airplanes, a car, and 2 people. And we were there for 5 years. When I came up here, after he died 5 years ago, and I came up here, and it was a lovely place. I discovered with my daughter here, I had to move here. So I went back home and I said, I'm going to sell the house. And there was a knock on the door that day, and it was the guy next door who had a very small place for his airplane that he was making. And he said, I hear you're leaving. I want to buy your house. What are you asking? Anyway, in 3 days that house was sold, and I was on my way up here permanently. The fellow was married to a young gal from the Philippines, and all she wanted was the desk to have her friends over with. She didn't care about the airplanes, and she never flew as far as I know. And all he did was work on airplanes. And 2 days ago I got the word that he had died. And little Feely is going back to her home down south. Now she has to sell 4 planes, all the stuff that's in the house and in the place where the airplanes are. And apparently, because she is not a regular person of the United States, there's a lot of paperwork. So I can't find out how much she's asking for the house or whether she's ready to go down south or not. As soon as I find that, I brought some things to it to show you the monthly paper that the group of 30 houses around the little airport do, and what the house looks like, and as soon as I find out how much it's going to be, I'll let anybody know. But I know people from here tend to want to, for winter, fly down to, and this would be an absolutely perfect place. It's a beautiful apartment, double dock part. And if you walk out of the kitchen, you bump your head with the wing of your plane. That's all you need to know.
Thank you, Betty.
1030 is the name of the town. It's exact center of Arizona. So it's good, all the good stuff in the sky and not the bad stuff.
Thank you, Betty. Just before you get up here, Chip, there's one brief thing. Ken's here today, and he's our treasurer, and this is the kind of the meeting we try and collect our annual dues. You know, the chapter has to pay dues to the EAA National and insurance to EAA National, plus we provide the breakfast here. So for those of you that manage to have their money with them, Ken will be here, and it's just nominal.
And don't forget the great newsletter, monthly newsletters you get.
Yes. Yes.
I can't think of everything.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Boy, I see a lot of old familiar faces. For those that don't know me, my name is Chip LaPlante, and this year will mark, on April 12th, my 51st anniversary of taking my first flight lesson at Bellingham International. Craig.
I soloed this day in 1966.
All right. I've held a flight instructor certificate now for 46 consecutive years. I quit logging flight time about 12 years ago after passing 20,000 hours. And most of that was GA. There was only about 1,100 that was commercial airline work. I hold a type certificate in a Lear multi-engine. I'm a commercial rotorcraft helicopter and floatplane pilot. And
Don't forget to name your floatplane instructor.
he was my floatplane instructor, Dave Crunchy. We sure had a good time. Let's see. And so with that, your presenter for tonight couldn't make it, and so I was fortunate to have Bill ask me to be your presenter for this evening. And somehow the communication got a little mixed up in as such that I think most of you think this is non-controlled airports, right? Well, it's not. It's a presentation on mid-air collision avoidance, which I feel is the most important thing in aviation. And the reason being is because I had a extremely close call way back in '79 as a Greenhorn instructor, and there couldn't have been a foot between us. And I'll relay the story to you. I was working with a nuclear weapons technician that was based in Comox up on Vancouver Island. He was a U.S. citizen. He would drive his camper down to Bellingham, park in the parking lot, and live out of his camper to take commercial lessons. And so one day we had to do his dual cross-country requirement for his commercial. And I said, well, why don't we fly up to Courtney, which is right next to Comox, and you can see your wife and kids for the day, and we'll come back. And he goes, boy, that's a perfect idea. So early in the morning, we took off and went up to Abbotsford, cleared customs, went right down the border out to Vancouver Island, and we're going to follow the coastline up. And we're about 8 miles north of Nanaimo, and it was about a 1,700 solid overcast, good visibility underneath, no rain. And of course, I'm just sitting there. He's in the left seat, and I caught something out of the corner of my eye. And I didn't take the time to look. In just one movement, I closed the throttle, hammered left aileron as I slammed right rudder, and put it right into a slip and dropped out, pulling away and dropping out. And as I made that motion, I noticed out of my left eye that he turned and looked. And after I'd recovered from the dive, I asked him, was there something there? He goes, I hope to shout. In those words, it's funny how you remember everything exactly. He says, that was a big twin-engine military subfighter. And I went, oh, really? He goes, yeah. I said, well, how close did we come? And he goes, close. I thought we were going to hit for sure. I was looking in the treetops to see where we were going to end up. Wow. Well, we were on a flight plan. The subfighter pulled up beside us and got our end number, right? Well, when he got back to base, his commanding officer wanted to see him right away and asked what we were doing aerobatics out there for. And of course, he said, my instructor hadn't have pulled off that aerobatic mover at that instant, we wouldn't be here. The pilot of the subfighter, he quit. Got back to base, ripped up his license, said, I'm not flying anymore. They asked him, when did you first see that airplane? He said, well, I didn't see the airplane until after my instructor made his move. Well, when did your instructor first see the airplane? He said, well, he really didn't see the airplane until he formed up on us and looked over my shoulder, looked over his shoulder and saw him forming up on us. What do you mean? He just reacted to something he thought he saw. Had I taken the time to look, I wouldn't be here. It was that close. They asked the subfighter pilot, when did you first see that airplane? He said, we didn't see that airplane till the belly of that airplane completely filled our windscreen.
Wow.
So ever since then, I've really delved quite deeply into collision avoidance. And so now I'd like to show a video from AOPA on collision avoidance, and then I'm going to expunge on some of the things that they talk about.
Ready? You need the first 22 seconds? I need to ask. Okay, here we go.
Two things scare pilots more than the thought of a mid-air collision, and understandably so. Not only are they horrible to contemplate, they often seem like random events, completely beyond anyone's control. But they're not entirely beyond our control. Knowing how, when, and where to look for traffic, and understanding the limits of your ability to spot it can significantly reduce your risk of a collision. Statistically speaking, the risk of a mid-air is small. The United States sees an average of only 10 mid-airs per year. Those that do happen, however, tend to have certain things in common, namely locations and situations. There are places and times where the most aircraft share the least airspace, close to an airport, at low altitude, during the day. When these risk factors align, the chance of a mid-air increases. More than half of all collisions take place within 5 miles of an airport, and more than 95% occur within 3,000 feet of the surface during daylight hours. VORs are also common points of conflict. So are the fixes that define instrument approach procedures, particularly those in Class Echo airspace, when the weather is VFR and aircraft are flying practice approaches. As the old saying goes, discretion is the better part of valor. If 5 other pilots have chosen the same time to practice your favorite instrument approach or do touch and goes at your home airport, it's often best to circle someplace nearby until things calm down a bit, or else just go someplace less crowded. The precise navigation offered by GPS and often augmented by capable modern autopilots is impressive, but it comes with a downside. Namely, that aircraft are more likely to be on exactly the same course and altitude than in the past. Nav and strobe lights make traffic easier to see at night, which is one of the reasons there are relatively few collisions after dark. Still, it's worth refreshing your memory of position light systems and how to interpret them. If you only see one position light, the traffic is crossing in front of you, from right to left if the light is red, and left to right if it's green. If you see the lights of another aircraft directly ahead, though, and they don't seem to be moving, there are only 2 possibilities. If the red light is on the right and the green to the left, it's coming directly at you. Sidestep to the right and turn on your landing light. If you see a white light, you're behind the other aircraft and going in the same direction. Unless you know it's going faster than you are, a sidestep to the right is appropriate here too. Back in primary training, we all learned the most basic technique for collision avoidance: see and avoid. But in the real world, see and avoid has limitations. Just ask anyone who's struggled to spot traffic after being told exactly where to look by ATC. One of those limitations is that the eye does a much better job of detecting motion than picking up stationary objects off in the distance, which means that you're more likely to spot less dangerous crossing traffic than more dangerous converging traffic. In addition, the structure of the aircraft itself may prevent you from seeing the necessary directions. In almost half of mid-airs, one pilot has no chance to see the other aircraft because it's approaching from behind. Another 40% are side impacts. In fact, less than 15% of collisions are anything close to head-on. So, what's a pilot supposed to do? First of all, don't stop looking. The old idea of big sky, little airplane is only approximately true, and not watching for other aircraft won't improve your chances of seeing them. As much as practical, keep your eyes outside the cockpit and scanning, looking at small chunks of the sky at a time. Second, take full advantage of the other eyes available to you. ATC can be extremely helpful, but there are limitations here too, especially for VFR aircraft. At Class Bravo and Charlie airports, ATC uses radar to help sort out traffic. But at most Class Delta fields, the controllers are relying mostly on their eyes. Likewise, flight following is only provided when controller workload permits. So, while it's always a good idea to ask, keep in mind that it's least likely to be available when the skies are the most crowded. Pilots often mistakenly assume that controllers are looking out for them anytime they're talking to ATC. But in visual conditions, whether VFR or IFR, pilots assume primary responsibility for maintaining a safe distance from other aircraft. ATC capabilities vary as well. Controllers at Class Delta fields are responsible for sequencing traffic on and off the runways, not for assuring separation. When they can't acquire traffic visually, they have to rely on position reports that may not be perfectly accurate. And regardless of the airport, remember that controllers are human too and sometimes make mistakes. Bottom line, don't get complacent just because you're talking to tower. All things considered, the best way to avoid mid-air collisions is to take a two-pronged approach. 1, do everything you can to make sure others see you. And 2, assume that they don't. Rule 1 means making yourself more visible by turning on your lights when you're approaching an airport and entering the traffic pattern. Make position calls at 10 and 5 miles out when entering the pattern and during turns when the aircraft is most visible. Rule 2 is sort of like the old concept of defensive driving. For example, listening can be as critical as looking. Inbound to non-towered fields, check the AWAS and tune into the CTAF at least 15 miles out. Put together a mental picture of where the other traffic is and what runway's in use. That goes for towered fields as well. Mentally allow for the possibility that other pilots are either not talking or are giving inaccurate position reports. Focus your attention on listening and looking. And don't forget to check those blind spots once in a while. Finally, give yourself every possible advantage. Electronic traffic detection systems won't catch everything, but they do spot most traffic. They're increasingly inexpensive and can show traffic on devices you may already own, like smartphones and tablet computers. Properly ADS-B-equipped aircraft can detect all transponder-equipped traffic while you're within range of a ground station. Pilots who've flown with ADS-B in busy airspace report having been amazed at the amount of traffic they never would have seen on their own. Help from ATC is valuable too, as long as you're receiving radar services, whether under IFR or VFR. Controllers will provide traffic advisories and safety alerts, but that's no cause for complacency. If you see conflicting traffic that's clearly going to be a problem, don't wait for vectors from ATC. It's better to take action while you've still got room to maneuver. And if you can't get flight following, monitoring the frequency can still provide some useful tips about other traffic in the area. Above all, never forget that no one system is perfect. Panel mount avionics and portable equipment, ATC radar, and even your own overworked eyeballs can all miss other aircraft. The more of these you have working for you, the better. So remember, make yourself visible, provide good position reports, and listen early to build a mental picture of who's in that airspace. And knowing when and where the collision risk is concentrated, during the day, near an airport, and below 3,000 feet AGL, will keep you concentrating your attention where it's needed most.
Okay, and so with that, I've had at least 8 or 9 close calls, 2 or 3 of which were really close. Anybody else had near misses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have.
I had one recently at Arlington, and I was actually flying somebody else's 172. I was unfamiliar with his transponder, so he turned it on, but he didn't turn on the ADS-B, and that particular transponder was another selection. I didn't recognize that. I'm just flying the airplane, turning final for runway 34 at Arlington, and there was another airplane approaching from the south that wasn't on the correct frequency. They were on the old Arlington frequency. Another 172. We didn't see her, and turned final, and at about 100 feet, she just caught a glimpse of us under the side of her cowling. We were just slightly offset from each other, and she pulled up. She was about ready to land on top. Combination of the daytime, close to airport, below 3,000 feet, but also unfamiliar with the airplane I was flying, assuming that the pilot, who was actually the pilot in command, knew his transponder was not in the ADS-B mode, and the other person on the wrong frequency. That was as close as I want to get.
Yeah, nothing, you can't have had anything worse. I mean, it's the pilot's space. Nothing worse can happen to us pilots than a midair. I've been go ahead, Roger.
Good video, but I'm surprised it doesn't say anything about ADS-B in there.
Oh, well, I got one for that too.
Okay, that's, well, when I was still flying, boy,
Yeah.
I can't believe the amount of targets that I
Right.
picked up. And
Oh, yeah, yeah,
had 6 or 7 one night. I've never seen a single one of them.
right, yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen traffic on, the tablet and can't find it.
Chip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also important to realize that it's not just at non-tower controlled airports it's a problem. Some years ago, I was a partner with Bob Kuche, for those of you who know him, in a Lake Buccaneer, and we had been cleared to land at 16 at Bellingham. We were out maybe just outside the Slater Road a little ways, and remember the Buccaneer is a top-mounted engine, a pusher, and right over the top of us, didn't miss the prop by any more than 10 feet, came a Cherokee who had also been cleared to land on 16. A tower-controlled airport on essentially short final, and the possibility as near a miss as you can get.
Wow. Well, and as you saw in the video, they're not responsible for separation, only sequencing. All right. So I've had the fortunate opportunity to have spoken with 2 people. Oh, the video says on average 10 mid-airs across America per year. And so your odds of being involved in a mid-air collision are pretty slim. But if you are involved in one, your odds of surviving it are even slimmer. I've had the fortunate, go ahead.
Well, just a couple little things at Arlington, approach on
Arlington's nasty, isn't it?
approaching on 1-6, and also a 2-9 is an angled runway, and I never heard anything on the radio. I'm on final, and this, I think it was a 172, was coming in on 2-9, and fortunately there's quite a bit of space. I was fairly high, because I'm a glider, so I just used my dive brakes at the end, so I was fairly high, maybe 200 feet. And he was down about 100 feet, but he crossed right under me, and never heard him radio call, nothing. And but I didn't see him coming down on down either. The other thing that I wanted to point out is I thought I had pretty perfect vision. I had corrected vision in my right eye, which I thought was perfect. My left eye I knew was a little fuzzy over the years, but it made both eyes a little bit fuzzy. Again, thinking my right eye was perfect all this time. And I noticed that other people were spotting airplanes before I did. We were trying to see where the aircraft are out there, and there, people are saying, "Hey, I see it right now." I said, "Where? How come I'm not seeing that?" Anyway, I just had cataract surgery, and I had the cataract surgery on my left eye first, which was what I knew was kind of a little fuzzy. And all of a sudden, I realized that my right eye was really fuzzy too. I never knew it. You have no baseline.
Right.
So have your eyes checked, and be advised if you can get cataract surgery, do so.
Jeff?
One thing I noticed giving check rides in the past, and especially the new generation is actually getting worse, is the introduction of the ADS-B. A lot of the newer generation are actually getting, I say the word lazy is not the right word.
Complacent.
I guess. Complacent is a good word. And I basically correct that all the time, and it's a bad habit that putting that much technology in one cockpit, people have a tendency to look down and they see the traffic and they are happy with that. And I say, well, what about you confirm the traffic outside and correlate with the traffic you see inside? So they look in the box, they go, okay, traffic at 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, they look in the box, but they don't look up to be able to confirm, yeah, that traffic is over there, that traffic is over there. So they're just confirming on one side, that box, and they're happy with it. And they just go, I'm good, and they carry on.
Yep.
And that's a fallacy that needs to be corrected.
Absolutely.
So if you see people doing that, go, no, the box is good, your eyeballs is required,
Right.
and that's the thing. You see the traffic, now you basically accommodate DFARs. But if you do just the box, you're not doing it.
Right,
So
right.
I've seen that happening. It's getting worse, actually. So heads up.
And I've seen a lot of people wasting time trying to find ghost targets that are on those boxes as
Right.
well.
It does happen, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've had the fortunate, I've been fortunate to have talked to two people involved in mid-airs that actually survived it. One was a woman from Idaho, in the back country of Idaho. She managed to survive it. She was alone, but the other aircraft, everybody died. And the other one is here with us this morning. His name is Mr. Bill Post. Do you care to tell us anything about that, Bill?
I was up in Alaska flying float planes in southeast, full load of on 206s, and I was in the lead. A company pilot was following me, and as we turned into the mountains, get up over the glaciers to give these people a scenic flight before dropping them off at a lodge, he cut the corner on me. He lost sight of me. And I don't know how many of you are float plane pilots, but have you ever heard of what we call the walk wire that goes from the nose of one float across to the other, so that if you want to switch sides, you don't have to try and run through the cabin where you got passengers or freight. You can go up to the prop and just hot-foot it across on this, what we call the walk wire. Well, it's also a good cheese cutter. And that he caught me just above the elevator and horizontal, about a foot to 18 inches above, and took out most of my rudder and folded over the vertical on me. And I'll never forget, then he just banks off and he says, I'm going to the back to the lodge. Never asked how I'm doing. And I found that I could stabilize the aircraft. I didn't know it at the time, I had the, as I say, the rudder folded over. By putting it into a sight slip. But then of course the problem is that I'm losing altitude. And below me, the only landing option was Glacial River. I don't know how many of you folks have seen them, but they're just muddy with debris, rock, silt, that sort of stuff that's coming down. So you have no idea what the water conditions are. There could be only a couple inches of water above a building like Sandbar, or you could have 6 feet. And I was finally forced, as I got down and leveled off, the airplane, I didn't like the feel of it. And even though it's glacial water, cold as hell, I just felt I was better landing than trying to keep it in the air. And thankfully that landing worked out fine. We didn't run aground or anything like that. But I got to tell you, when I stepped out I came to a stop and we were just floating downstream, and I stepped out on the float to see what was wrong with my airplane. The sight of that tail, the amount of it that was missing and folded over, I almost fell off the floats into the river. But that was just a thing of where two of us were flying in concert. He lost sight of me, he didn't tell me, he didn't make a change in elevation or do anything to avoid me. He just followed his determined path and came up on me from behind. So I had no warning whatsoever. So it was, yeah, by the amount of foot to 18 inches, that could have been a full load of people that would have gone into the wilderness. So yeah, it's always out there. It's waiting to get you.
2018, Don Muir, a lot of you know Don. He put together an RV7 for me. We were going to Oshkosh.
Okay.
We had to hold up south of Oshkosh in the afternoon because of thunderstorms. And there were the little airport that we were landing at, that we held up at, probably could normally hold maybe 50 airplanes. Well, there was over 200 airplanes parked on this little airport. And when they finally cut loose and opened up Oshkosh, it was a mad rush to get in. we got into the, I can't remember the name of the waypoint, but in Oshkosh, you don't talk to them, they talk to you, and they say, you know, blue RV7, wag your wings. So I wag my wings, and the guy says, good wag, and he says, the Cessna 182 up above the RV7, he says, wag your wings. And I said, above it? Well, we had the canopies, got the cloth deal to keep the heat out. I opened that up, and 10 feet above us was the Tundra tires of the 182. And he says, you go out to the lake and go into a holding pattern. And so he made him go off, and this guy was coming down on us, and everybody wanted to get in there, so he was trying to get in between a couple airplanes.
Sure.
And we never even saw him.
Sure.
And I opened that up, and Don went, whoa! There's these Tundra tires looking at you. But it's a humbling feeling. And then the other part of it, when I first started flying, I started flying with, I don't know if a lot of it, you know Alan O'Dell.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was the last one to fly with Alan
over
O'Dell.
Skagit with the low wing, high wing.
Yep. He I think developed, and Danny knows him, he was one of the founders of Meadow Mist. And he was giving me high performance time in his 180. So we landed at his place at Meadow Mist and went in and had a soda and BS and flew out, and I landed at Bellingham with him, and we got out of the 180, and he jumped in a 152 with another kid, and they went out over Skagit County, and some guy was doing aerobatics with was it a pitch special or something?
Yeah, I don't recall
But
right
he
offhand,
come up
but
underneath the wing and took the wing off of the 152 and killed
It was
both.
actually Harold Bartram's Cherokee 6 he was flying with, Harold's kid.
yeah, it was
That's
a
right.
low wing, high wing thing.
It was a Cessna 150 or 152 that was in the pad.
That was
Yeah.
it, Pat,
And
yeah.
flying around it.
Yeah,
But,
we had the high wing and the low wing.
I literally was the last person to see him alive. I
Yeah.
put fuel in that airplane, took the credit card from the kid, and they said they'd get it when they got back. And they never came back.
Well, I was the last one to fly with him. Yeah. And
Alan
that's,
O'Dell was a high school teacher at Ferndale High School. My mother was also one. And she had arranged for me to take lessons from Alan. He didn't come back. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, yeah. And so you can see it's a pretty critical thing to see and avoid other airplanes. And you know, for those of you that have instrument ratings, when you were training for your instrument rating, you probably heard your instructor say, fixation's your biggest enemy, keep that scan going, right? Well, for me, that holds true anytime you're in an airplane, whether it's on the ground or in the air. And I like to think of it, here's the analogy. You know, we're birds, right? You ever watch a bird? A bird doesn't sit there and... A bird is constantly changing his field of view. A bird hardly ever stays on one subject for more than 3 seconds unless it's a direct impingement. Then they'll zero in on it. And we need to do the same thing anytime we're flying, is keep that scan going. Inside, outside, over there, over there. Taking the scan in 10 degree, we have the ability of a 200 degree scan. But anything outside 10 to 15 degrees, our eyes don't tend to focus on it. And anything we do detect, we don't tend to believe it's truly there. Fortunately, I did. Okay, so we want to try to get in the habit of constantly changing that field of view. I do it while I'm driving, constantly changing view. Look way off into that field, look far down the road, look close to the road, look on the side, and just get in the habit of changing that field of view. Birds do it, of course, because they're going to get zapped by some other predator, but you get the point. We need to keep that scan constantly moving. Any instructors in here?
Sure, yeah. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the airspace right here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Canadian aircraft in this airspace, and they're not required at this point to have ADS-B. Most of them don't. And for those of you that sit there and look down at your iPad or whatever that you're looking for your traffic, they may or not be there. You know, the radar in Canada is not the same as what we get through the cell phone towers. They're not connected to that system. They're not part of the FIS system. So we have a lot of traffic in this area around the Whatcom County that is not ADSB equipped and will not show on your, because the FIS isn't available here. The nearest cell phone tower that provides FIS service is Everett.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, no one's gonna see me hanging under my parachute at 3,500 feet. And I guarantee you, you hit me, I'll ruin your day and you're gonna ruin mine.
Well, I'd point out one thing, and I don't know how many others have experienced it, but especially when you get like over towards Friday Harbor, Roche, where there's a lot of float traffic. The fact, and I've been in the same situation where a group of pilots is constantly flying together, and they know every rock and
I was just getting to that.
points and everything else. It's local knowledge, and so they refer to it extensively, if not exclusively. And for a pilot that doesn't know those landmarks, then you're not helped at all.
No.
Rather than distance and the angle to an airport or something like that, where you get a mental image of where they are. Yeah, I'm slowly starting to learn them, but that's just a trap for non-local pilots. They're very good at making their calls, but if you don't know the vernacular, they're speaking another language for you.
And to dovetail onto that, it's also in the discipline of it, and I guess some people are going to get long in the tooth in aviation and say, I don't want to talk on the radio. I've heard a lot of people saying, I don't want to talk on the radio, which is great. I mean, because that's the freedom of flying, not having to talk to anybody. So, but on the other end, it's also a negative, because if you're basically going to go close to an important environment, or in an environment you know it's going to be traffic, is to be able, your intention, or to be able to keep verbal and situational awareness, which is SA, is everything.
Everything.
And if you basically do this, you advertise your position, it gives people, if you don't have it on the box, people are gonna go, oh, he's over here, you know? They'll look for that over there. So it's also a good thing to have, you know, and always carry a backup radio in case, you know, to be able to have that communication is such an essential thing. Like in our area, where, you know, me, Doug, and in that area, like right, pretty much to the southeast of here, it's the training area for the schoolhouse,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing we did have a big beef about. They have one frequency, but the area that we're at is all 22.9. So they're gonna be on their school frequency. Who knows the school frequency here that they use? See, nobody knows.
JF, who are you referring to? What schoolhouse?
Command and BAS.
Okay.
They have their own frequency. We don't know what the frequency is because it's their thing. It's their school frequency. So if you're not an instructor, you don't run that frequency.
Okay.
They're not manning 229. They're manning that frequency. So if they're over our airports, they should, because traffic is 229, that area of Meadow-Mist, Westwind, Butler, they're all, you know, that 229. So if they would be manning 229, guess what? You know, we would know what the traffic is versus the
Right.
school traffic. So,
Right.
and they do maneuvering in that area.
Right.
And that's their
Lots
training
of-
box.
right.
So when they do unusual attitude, guess what? They're not paying attention to traffic. They're
Right.
paying attention to doing their attitude.
Exactly.
So a communication thing, meaning if we know we're gonna be in the training box and advertise where you are, goes a long way. for
Absolutely,
awareness.
absolutely. And maneuvering flight is one of the biggest areas of mid-air collisions, identified by, you know, null reports in the FAA and such. And so anytime you're going to do maneuvering, stalls, slow flight, deep turns, all that stuff, you really need to clear that area, regardless of what you have as far as electronic boxes or anything else. You need to clean their area quite well before doing any maneuvering, because it's a high probability that statistically maneuvering flight has mid-air collisions.
And what Bob talked about the Canadians not having ADSB.
Right.
We got a lot of Canadian trainers.
Sure,
For our
yeah.
place, a lot.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
A lot.
Just one last point, and that since I have a
Sure.
whole room full of pilots,
Uh-huh.
is one thing all of us can do to improve awareness, situational awareness while flying,
Uh-huh.
and positional awareness is clear, concise, slow, understandable radio transmission.
Mm-hmm.
I notice that when I'm out on island frequency, I would say at least 40 or 50% of the radio calls I cannot understand and hear, simply because people are talking so fast.
Yep.
And, or they're not keying the mic properly,
Yep, yep.
or, or they're giving too much information or chatting.
Yeah.
So just as a pilot, clear, concise communications goes
Yeah.
a long way towards safety and
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So here's the deal. We're all flying out in the San Juans together, all at the same time. And we hear, how many of you, raise your hand if you know where Frost Island is? Friday Harbor traffic, 698 Fox over Frost Island. Well, that helped me out.
You can always ask.
You can always ask. But how many of you know about where 7 miles east of Friday Harbor is? Yeah, everybody.
Figure that out.
Right? Well, that's where Frost Island is, by the way. And what I'm saying is, give your position report as a direction and distance from an airport. Pilots know where airports are. Almost every airport, especially if you're somewhat familiar with the area, and or a designated VFR checkpoint that is on the chart. Okay, if you really want to show your knowledge of geography, then hey, I'm 6 miles northwest of Friday Harbor over Bear Cove. That's fine. Next time somebody just says Bear Cove, we might have an idea where that might be.
In Bremerton, they always say over the golf course.
Well, and there's one going into Arlington. It's like Bridge Cross. I can't remember what it was, but
Island Crossing.
Island Crossing. That's all I hear is Island Crossing. And I was going in Arlington one day when
A lot of times at Bremerton, they say over the golf course, and there's about 5 golf courses.
yeah.
Harvey's, they say bend in the river.
So direction and distance from the airport, always, or a designated VFR checkpoint, or some huge landmark. I'm over Lake Superior. That you can't miss, right?
Yeah.
I heard the helicopter guy going to the hospital. I'm over Husky Stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that might be the Civic Field, but can't be certain. Is that at the college or is it at Civic Field?
Another call that should be made, given your jump experience, is jumper pilots will say, blah, 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 jumpers away.
Where? Exactly. Where?
And
Yeah.
it's especially difficult in long cross countries because you don't know all the places. But if they say over Charlie Uniform Delta, jumpers away, or jumpers
Right.
in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Then-
Harvey Field.
Harvey Field's a good one, yeah. And of course Shelton has Kapowson Air Sports there, so, yeah.
I spent 10 years flying around Denali or McKinley where the traffic could be really dense on a busy day. And our normal procedure there was we'd be over, and that's something I'm very specific about. This sort of thing, when somebody sees a reporting point ahead of them a couple miles and they report their position as over that reporting point, really irks me. But anyways, the location, altitude, and your next reporting point. And with those 3 things, you just get very quickly, and then it was just like you had a moving map, just like a chess game. And you had an idea of where people were, their altitude, and where they were headed. And that worked great for us. But you have to know the terrain, you have to know the reporting points, and when a stray pilot would come in, others would warn that there's a 172 or a 180 and he doesn't know where he is. Because that's it, they just didn't know the language or the reporting points. But
Right.
if you're in a familiar area, that worked out very well for
Right.
us.
If you're talking to a tower, just an arbitrary reporting point is somewhat okay, but not truly okay, because the tower's going to know where all these points are, right? And might be able to advise someone who doesn't know that there's an airplane in your vicinity. But I still would, for instance, I'll call a tower and say I'm 8 southeast over Chuckanet Bay. And that educates people who just use Chuckanet Bay. Right?
The Customs and Border Protection helicopter Blackhawks. They fly over here. They don't talk to anybody. And they come in, they land in Plymouth,
They turn on the lights? Hell no.
Yeah.
Who needs lights?
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
anybody know they're coming in.
Yeah.
They do that all
Yeah.
the time.
You know those flashing bus, like school bus landing lights?
Yeah.
Boy, those are great. I love those things. They really show up nicely. And of course, I put an LED landing light in my airplane, and it's because they don't take any power, they don't get hot, they last forever. And from the time I'm clear for takeoff until I land, that's on.
Me too, yeah.
The whole time, day or night. So, what's easier to see, an airplane in level flight or an airplane turning?
Turning.
Turning. So consider when operating at a non-tower controlled airport, 84 Fox is turning downwind, 84 Fox is turning base, turning final, rather than on base, on final. Because it's easier to see. Now, what is it that we're exactly looking for? Well, surprisingly enough, the airplane that's on a collision course has to appear as though it's right on the horizon. If it's below the horizon, it's lower than you. If it's above the horizon, it's higher than you. So that horizon's the key, as if he's at your altitude, okay? Now, can you tell if he's on a collision course? He's not moving. He's sitting dead still. He's not going left, right, up, or down. He's just getting bigger, what's called the blossoming effect, right? And studies have shown that it takes 12.5 seconds to see, recognize that it's an impingement, and to take action to avoid it. 12.5 seconds. Well, just at 120 miles an hour, that's twice the length of this runway. And so I'm going to show you a video now of this particular picture here. This is a friend of mine and I. We jumped out of an airplane and he just went absolutely solidly stable straight down. And then I left about 3 seconds after him, I went before him, and so he's higher than I am. And he came down to my level, and he stayed right there. And I came in and closed on him and made contact with him, okay? From the time you spot me in this video, as a matter of fact, in this picture right there, I'm in that picture. Okay,
Yeah. So that's not fair.
I'm in this picture, and when Dave starts this video, within 8 seconds, I'm going to make contact with the person taking the video.
Why would you want to jump out of a airplane?
It's called FUN. You know, one thing a lot of people don't realize is that once you reach terminal velocity, that's the fastest you're going to fall because of the wind resistance. There's no sensation of falling anymore because all your weight comes back to you and you've got 1G and it just feels like you're crawling around on a big fluffy cushion. Then, of course, when the altimeter says it's time to hang your anchor out and fly your inflatable hang glider, well, that's what you do, right? And if the first one doesn't work, well, then you release it and use the second one. And if they both fail, hey, your time's up. Because the odds of that are so remote, it's pathetic. I've never had a malfunction with 1,800 jumps, so. Yeah.
Wow, that's a bunch.
You ready?
Log that as flying time.
Ready?
Yep.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, sure.
I'll play it again.
7 to 8 seconds from the time you spotted me till I made contact. And the FAA says it takes 12 and a half to see and avoid another airplane. And now consider another airplane doing 120, 180, 220, and you're doing 120. Just imagine 220, it's 2 miles a minute. That means 1 mile in 30 seconds, half a mile in 15 seconds, right? If we're both doing 120, at 15 seconds, we're a mile apart. Pretty quick. Happens pretty quick.
Okay, ready for the other one?
And now this is David's son. Notice how he's not moving relative to the horizon? And he's on the horizon. He's sitting right there on the horizon and he's not moving. That airplane's on a collision course with the person taking the video. And what's important is that, unfortunately, we don't get to see an airplane on a collision course very often, thank goodness. And so a lot of times, we don't know what we're looking for because we've never seen it before.
This is a air battle damagement assessment he's doing now on his colleague that's taking the picture.
Assessing it or incurring it?
Looking for a target.
Well, cloud busting is fun.
Caution wing turbine.
They have their own rules.
We did a lot of cloud busting.
You might be a wing walker.
Not with that, though.
Now they'll reverse rolls, and then the video will end shortly thereafter.
Are they over Whatcom County?
What's that?
Where are they at?
This is Vance Air Force
Oh,
Base.
okay.
This was his Finney flight, his last flight.
They're operating in a military operating area under IFR rules, so they don't have cloud clearances like a VFR flight. Like they can go wherever they want, do whatever they want.
What's that symbol mean, Steve?
What's that? I didn't see much of give it, but normally, if you're doing a hand signal with fingers, it would be an engine. We call it a HEPO signal. Then the second letter E stands for engine, but I'm not sure. I didn't see. You might be saying to take the lead.
Yeah, I think it was 2, take the lead. Yep.
Okay, so it must appear as though it's right on the horizon, not moving. It's just getting bigger from wherever it's coming from, right? And so if you happen to spot an airplane that's moving, take a... if it's moving relative to his background, can't hear. 2 airplanes are closing. I look over here, and this airplane appears to be making forward progress. He's right on the horizon. Without either one of us changing course, he'll pass in front of me. If he appears to be sliding slowly backwards relative to the horizon, he'll pass behind me. But if he's moving forward rapid, he's just getting bigger. And we're on a collision course. It's the hardest airplane to spot because it's not moving. It's like a wild animal in the woods. What do wild animals do when you get close? They hunker down, they sit dead still. Right? Because it's harder for you to see them. Until you get within their flight distance, and you don't have any choice, they got to bugger off, but they'll hunker down. And that's what a collision airplane is doing. It's hunkering down, hoping you don't see it. When I see windshields that are dirty, I insist that they clean them. Because I'll catch a bug out of the corner of my eye and it'll just freak me out.
Not the bugs.
Yeah. So keep clean windshields. Your visibility is important. Say again?
If you see one and you don't know whether it's an airplane or a bug, kick the rudder. It doesn't move, it's a bug.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Radar flight following, all right? In class Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, radar controllers are required to separate everyone. Other than that, it's on a workload permitting basis only. All right, air route traffic control centers, approach and departure controls such as would be and such. Okay, if you're not within his class Charlie or within his class Bravo, or you're with the air route traffic control center, it's on a workload permitting basis only. And the radar controller's primary responsibility is to separate IFR from IFR, because technically they can't see. They're in the clouds, right? They have separation standards below 10 grand, 1,000 feet vertically, 5 miles horizontally. If 2 IFR airplanes breach that separation standard, an alarm will go off at his control console, and that controller is fired. No questions asked. Down the road, go look for a new job. Okay, so if you've got 2 VFRs over here getting close, or an IFR and a VR getting close over here, but 2 IFRs are getting really close over here, he's going to pay attention to these. Those guys can have a midair, he won't get fired. But if these guys set the alarms off, he's done. And so you can't count on them to call out everything.
Chip,
Yeah.
as you know, the FR traffic, we do have the TCAS.
Right.
We are
Right,
required,
right.
and it happened to me over Sky Harbor. You know, it's a really bad area over there, like, because Sky Harbor, like, we're crossing traffic into, let's say, to go to Willie Gateway, you know? And there's a lot of VFR traffic right in that area, the
Sure.
crossing of the airport.
Right.
And
So we're talking down in the Phoenix area, right?
Yeah. And so many times I had to basically tell, hey, that's what's happening, we have an RA, and we have to.
We gotta make a move.
We have to make a move.
Yeah.
'Cause VFR traffic
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the IFR is not there to be able to give us separation, but
Right.
still our responsibility.
Absolutely.
To make sure that we're clear of traffic.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep. And you had that happen to you once too, didn't you, Dave? With an RA?
Yeah, that was going into CTAC, IMC actually. I got an RA out, maybe about over downtown Seattle, and it was a false RA. But I immediately contacted Approach and said, I didn't do anything, right? Because I didn't think it was really a traffic, and it was a defect in the equipment.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was going from the islands down to SeaTac, and I was just south of Alki Point.
Uh-huh.
I was on flight following, going into, I was sort of making the right quartering base to final for 16 right,
Uh-huh.
and on flight following, the Baron went right in front of me.
Was that me?
No. Did you fly for Seattle Yacht Charters? Because it says, literally, it's a turquoise Baron and Seattle Yacht Charters on the back of the fuselage. I could see the guy had those military kind of radios.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hear it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, here I was on flight following, this is like, 1984, 85 or something, I'm thinking I'm doing, but that's where you realize that, okay, he wasn't watching me.
Right.
I was coming out of Boeing Field going westbound.
Sure.
And he was on that VFR departure quarter, which I had no idea about, because, I was, never went to Boeing Field.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we must maintain a constant vigilance for something out there that's trying to hit us. Did you have?
Well, this might be a little silly, but I realize that I've had them in there before. When I think it was on my second solo flight out of Dongham.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab one.
And being a brand new guy, just had been, the instructor kicked me out for a couple days. I went out and I flew over the river and I was having a great old time. And I realized it's starting to get like toward dark. So I'm flying down the dive. I get about opposite Meridian High School. And all of a sudden, I'm just putting along.
Yeah.
Here comes this huge crowd of starlings. And they're coming up underneath me. And I go, oh no. And I was still indestructible back then. And one of them hits the strut and boing, another one, a couple of them hit the fabric.
Oh, yeah.
What am I going to do here? So I just hit the throttle, pulled back, and got above them. And I'm looking, all I see is this solid black underneath me. And so I throttled back and I followed them down to the old Citizens Dock, and they're like a big funnel, which woof, and down underneath.
Wow.
And,
wow.
I wasn't scared until I got on the ground.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Anybody ever flown with a person that's colorblind?
Yeah, my instructor.
They have an uncanny ability to spot other traffic.
Really?
Unbelievable. I've had the opportunity to fly with several colorblind people, and if I got, when I was flying with Barron for the construction company, I'd ask anybody, especially if I didn't know them, anybody here colorblind? Yeah, I'm colorblind. You're sitting up front with me. And I want you to watch for traffic. They have just an uncanny ability. This one guy, he's saying, there's an airplane over there. And I'm looking where? Over there. And finally when, I'm asking, relative to his background, where, finally I see him and he's freaking 20, 30 miles away. And it's unbelievable. I mean, and I've noticed that they're also very good at spotting animals in the bush. So yeah, if you notice that someone's colorblind, have them sit up in the front right seat. Another thing I used to do, especially going into high density areas such as Boeing Field and such, and I had several people in the airplane with me, I'd take a $1 bill and fold it and slide it in between the radios, and invariably one of them would ask me, "What's that for?" I said, "That's for whoever spots another airplane first." So I want everybody looking for them.
Just $1.
Just $1.
Inflation there.
That's sort of $5.
$20 bill. Yeah, that's 20 today.
What is the consensus in this room about the apparent serious shortage of air traffic controllers?
Oh, there's a shortage. There's no question. And mechanics and yeah, everybody. There's a shortage of a lot of personnel in aviation. Yeah,
Which
including
means they're probably also overworked.
overworked.
Extra shifts.
Absolutely.
Therefore,
Yeah.
perhaps
Yep.
tired. And
Yep.
so again, rely on your own eyeballs. and
Right.
attention.
Right. Just using my checklist here.
Joe,
Yeah.
there's a frequency in the southeast area for training, it's 122.75.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was in Eatonville one time and I was listening to that and I would announce that, you know, I'm over such and such place at altitude,
Uh-huh.
that direction.
Uh-huh.
And I even heard it up through Arlington area. I monitored it up through the Arlington area.
Okay. Yeah.
122.75.
Yeah, and just north of Boeing Field, that's in effect there for Lake Union.
And that is the frequency that they're using over our area, but
Yeah.
who in the room here knew that the frequency was 12275 for the school?
Well, 2275 is also a designated interplane frequency. A lot of folks like to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
That's technically not a legal interplane frequency for regular traffic. That is for overwater flying for commercial traffic.
Okay.
Which, of course, they're over water, they're not near here. It doesn't really interfere too bad, but 2275 is that frequency as well.
I think it's the only one, yeah.
So do you think that's what Command and BAS
Yep,
is using?
that's what they're using, it's exactly what
You'll
they're
hear
using.
them, and you also
But
hear Lake Washington traffic talking down there doing float trains and so forth.
And that's what I'm saying, the, you know, the conflict of 227, see, they're not manning 229, which all the airports here are manning 229, and they're manning 2275, so they're not gonna listen to 229, but yet the traffic operating is gonna be operating at 229,
Right.
not 2275, because we're not flight school.
Hey Jeff, what are they talking on 2275? Are like, when you said like BAS, I think you said BAS.
Interschool, they're doing the
They're
interschool
talking to
thing.
each other, or are
Yeah.
they announcing, hey, we're gonna do steep turns over here?
That's exactly what
They
they're
are
doing,
that,
yeah.
okay.
Usually over my
In this
place.
area, if you want to hear a lot of traffic, 122 to 72. And that's the frequency that the Canadians are using in their practice areas up north,
Oh.
which is the same frequency as Arlington. So a lot of times going into Arlington, you know, here's some guy over Glen Valley. Well, where's Glen Valley? Well, it's up by the Fraser River.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, so they use the same frequency as what Arlington is using for their practice areas up on the north side here.
Okay. Okay, just a couple more things. Climbing and descending flight. In climbing flight, I always climb so that the nose of my airplane is just slightly below the horizon, so I can see that horizon. If I'm unable to do that, then I will make shallow Dutch rolls to clear the area, especially in a long extended climb. And same thing for a long extended descent. Make shallow rolls, and even look behind you. You know, somebody could be coming up from behind as well. But those shallow rolls, to be able to look while you're climbing or descending, will make a huge difference if you've got an airplane climbing or descending. Years ago, I was doing an air show, dropping jumpers into Bellingham Airport, and Art Scholl was in a Chipmunk, and I saw him coming right at me off the airport. I mean, right at me. And I'm thinking, do I move? He went by me on the left side, and I turned and looked to my right, and he was right there. I mean, he went by me pretty fast, and I turned this quick, I turned to my right, and he's there. I was like, wait a minute, how did that happen? Amazing. But and also glare. Glare is another big factor. Time of day. You know, here at Linden, you're left downwind for 8, right? And you got the sun on the horizon, especially close to the equinox, right? You can't see anything coming on a right base or a left base or straight in because of that glare from that sun. So anytime I have the sun out in front of me, that's causing my visibility to be impaired by that glare. I get a heightened awareness of, you know, I really got to try to, you know, beat that glare and see clearly out there. When you've got the sun from behind going that way, it lights up the objects. It's much easier to see than if you got the sun in front of you, and so that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, just came to mind that when you're at a non-towered airport and the wind is calm, which end do you land at?
Which, I'm sorry?
Which end do you approach from?
One end to the other.
Yeah,
One or the other.
Either one, but what you don't know is.
unless there's a designated calm wind runway, but yeah, right.
But if you're coming up, like at Arlington, you could be coming on 1-6, because that's normally where people land.
Uh-huh.
But somebody else might be coming on 3-4.
Well, and of course you get out the instrument guy practicing on 3-4 with
Yeah.
people coming in on 1-6, so, yeah,
Your attention on the runway at that point in time.
yeah. Well, I hope all this was very helpful to all of you, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chip. Okay, lights, you want to shut the lights off? Yeah. Since I inevitably get asked 100 times, how are those projects coming? So here's a quick video update, so I don't have to answer questions. And get asked how my projects are coming, I thought maybe it would be just most efficient if I did a quick walk around video and showed you where I'm at. Currently, I'm in the last stage, the last stage of the last stage, which is finishing up the electrical connections in the forward portion of the ship. You can see all the tools I've got laid out there for cutting wires and stripping wires and putting connectors on. The upper and lower instrument panels I'm working on. At the moment, the upper panel doesn't require much. It only has 4 annunciator lights and 4 instrument lights that need to have wires run to them. And then the ignition switch there on the left-hand side. Virtually all the wires, and there are quite a few of them that come up here, are run through the 6 D-sub connectors that are under these red covers. So that's the instrument panel. Status. Everything aft of the seat back is completely finished now. So there's nothing to be done back here. All the wiring is done, everything's bundled and attached, the connections are all made. The only thing to be done is to hook up the battery wires, the battery cables themselves. I'll show you the inside of this avionics box, which is now all finished. This D-sub connector is loose because the circuit breaker, the printed circuit board to which it attaches is affixed to the bottom of one of the structural panels that goes in here and forms the lower floor of a little rack that goes in there. It gives me a place to store stuff. So again, all of this is completely finished. Rotor head. So up to this seat back position, everything is done. So now I'm working on what appears to be a giant rat's nest of wires, and sort of is a giant rat's nest of wires, but it's actually more organized than it looks like. When it's finished, it will look much more like the wire bundling that you see here, except that I won't be using the braided protection inside the cabin. That braiding stops right here, since it's all inside the fiberglass cabin. There's a couple of places I'll probably put some just to prevent abrasion, but other than that, the wires will be exposed. Like I said, it's a little more organized than it appears. I'm in the process right now of bundling the wires that go to each of these connectors. For instance, this bundle of wires here are all the wires that will hook onto the J12. This bundle is all of them that hook onto the J10. The J7 is complete. The J8, this is its bundle. The J1 and J2, they're basically finished as well. And this is where the cable that comes out of the grip on the cyclic stick comes, because there's a whole bunch of switches on there that do a whole bunch of things. So once I'm finished with this section, and that'll happen fairly quickly now, today I will be final positioning all these wires and final attaching them and making the connections to the connectors, putting the pins on them and sticking the pins in the connectors. the final remaining piece of this puzzle will be making all of the connections. Again, there are lots of them. You can see all those wires, and these are typically not just wires, they're cables. So some of these have up to 9 wires in them, individual conductors, and they all make their way underneath these 2 wooden blocks that I've got here, just to prevent me from running wires where there's an interference fit with the seat pan that goes on here. But then all of the connections in here, virtually all of them are D-sub connectors, some of which are done or partially done. So that is everything on this side. I've done away with the twist grip throttle completely, and now it's will just be done with the engine control unit, actuated by both a push button kill switch and a center loaded momentary contact up and down toggle switch that tells the ECU to either increase speed or decrease speed at 2 preset points. And again, all of the wiring back here is finished and bundled and connected. Including some additions I made back here. I put thermocouples on all the bearings of the drivetrain, starting with the gearbox here in the back. I've added a chip detector, hence these wires were necessary here. So that takes care of the little turbine machine. And now I'll just quickly walk outside and show you the Robinson.
That don't look like a Robinson.
Nice day today.
It's a red Robinson.
Hopefully I'll weather hold for tomorrow's EAA meeting. Okay, so the Robinson is all back together with the exception of putting on the main rotor head and installing the main rotor blades and tracking and balancing them. The annual is complete. The only thing I haven't done is I've got desiccant plugs in the upper spark plug holes on both sides, so there's the plugs have got to go in and be torqued. Then this little cover's got to go on, and then there's a little skirt section that goes right here on both sides. Other than that, this little ship is ready to fly, and I require 10 hours of SFAR 73 training, and I've elected to go to a flight school to get that done rather than do it in my ship, because once I've got that done, then I can go ahead and do the track and balance flying myself, which will both be interesting and probably save me some money in the long run. So that's the status of the 2 projects I have going, and I hope any of you who are building or working on projects are making progress as well. Ta-da.
We're gonna do a compression check, Dave?
Yeah.
Well, Chip, thank you very much for coming. I know it's late notice. It was actually, I saw the interaction of the group. It was a wonderful presentation.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Dave.
Just a quick couple of things. If you ever are involved in a matter and you survive it, start documenting everything, because the FAA is going to come after you, whether you were in the right or the wrong.
And Dave, thank you for the update. I know that saves a lot of questions when I contact different people. A couple of just little reminders. Ken's here to collect money if anybody has it. You know, it's nice to get that in early. The other is a little more on my personal situation. I don't know if any of you knew, about 1.5 years ago I had a heart attack and open heart surgery. And it's been a long struggle with the FAA, and things on my airplane got put aside. So just recently I got the airplane annual, and yesterday I got my license.
Hey! Great, yes! Woohoo! Nice. But one more thing, AC 90-48E has a tremendous amount of information about collision avoidance as well. So.
Anybody else have anything to contribute or anything else? Again,
just
For those that are interested but are not on the list to receive the newsletter, please see Bryant. Bryant, raise your hand. Please see Bryant, give him your email address, and we'll put you on the newsletter email list.
There's also links, if you just Google EAA Chapter 404, go to the upper left-hand corner, there's a menu, you drop that down, there's the newsletters, you click on the latest newsletter, and in each newsletter is you have the ability to sign up for the newsletter that way.
And one last item, promise. In the newsletter, Bryant always includes a link to the chapter's YouTube channel. And you can see I filmed today's presentation. If you miss a meeting and you wanted to see it, chances are it's going to be in a video form on the YouTube channel. So I welcome everybody to have a look and watch the previous presentations.
Anybody else wants to watch YouTube stuff, Ginger the Airplane is always welcome to watch.
Thank you.
You're all welcome to stay as long as you like and socialize. For cleaning up, please use the trash can just outside the door for all our plates and cups and things. And when you clean up, leave 2 tables in here and the cushion chairs along the wall. Then we don't have to put them back inside. But thank you all very much for attending. We'll see you all next month. And again, please stay and socialize.
Thanks, Bob.